Shalom Aleichem. We are continuing the Shulchan Aruch in the halachot of pizza. Page 484. And I see that nobody took me up on my offer to bring pizza for the class. So,
I had it for lunch.
but you ate it both. Yeah. Gimel. Ha-pizza. Now the Hebrew word for pizza, pizza. That's what it is.
How long ago were they using this word?
No, this is not. This is from modern Hebrew. Ha-pizza ha-mitzuya bizmanenu. The pizza that is prevalent in our, there could be different types of pizzas in different places. Meaning he's telling you the pizza that we know, but dough, sauce, cheese. That's what he's talking about. Shenotnim al habatzek harbe gvina v'tavlin umitz agvaniot. That they put on the dough a lot of cheese and spices and tomato sauce. Birchata hamotzi u'birchat hamazon. The blessing is hamotzi and birchat hamazon.
So if you go to a kosher pizza parlor, you say, motzi, they have the washing places.
Hamotzi and birchat hamazon.
It's been so long.
Yeah. I'm sure that's where you frequent when you're in New York. U'ma shetu'anim bizmanenu, and that which they say nowadays, she'osim et ha'isa mirov me pirot u'chalav, that they make the dough mostly with fruit juice or milk. I mean, what do? They take the pizza dough and they mix it, instead of with water, they knead it with apple juice or with milk. Very often, apple juice is used in at least the kosher pizzas. Why do they do that? Yeah, because the Jewish people have Birkat HaMazon phobia. They're afraid of thanking Hashem too much. So what do? They make sure they never have to wash their hands for bread. See, if you say Birkat HaMazon like us, it takes you a whole minute. You're not afraid of washing your hands when you need to. But if your Birkat HaMazon takes you 15 minutes, then it's a serious calculation. Especially you have a 20-minute lunch break and you're spending 3/4 of that saying Birkat HaMazon, then it's going to be a problem. Now, if you're traveling, you're on the road, all kinds of things that people are concerned about. So the kosher bakeries or pizza stores, they intentionally make their dough with milk or fruit juice, and then and they write on the sign in the store, Beracha is mezonot. Where do you see this very often? On the airplane. On the airplanes, in the kosher meals, they always have chalot, or rolls, or bagels, or whatever they have. And on the packaging it says, mezonos, always says on top of it. The blessing, why mezonot? Because they put fruit juice inside. Why do they put fruit juice inside? So you don't have to get up out of your chair to go wash your hands. That which they, yes.
If I'm not misunderstanding, I think I've heard one time also that if you eat certain amount of mesonot, you're still required to say Birkat Hamazon.
Very good. That's the law of Pata Baba Kisnin, which we studied earlier. That even on certain things that are mezonot, not all things, but certain things that are mezonot, when you eat enough of them or you make it into your meal, you have to say Hamotzi and Birkat Hamazon anyways. Right? So that's what you're referring to. So even for those who say mezonot on pizza, if that becomes their lunch or their dinner, then they have to wash their hands and say Hamotzi and Birkat Hamazon. So that which they tell us that the dough that you eat that has all this juice or milk inside of it, and that's why you say mezonot, en ze maspik, that's not enough to turn something into mezonot. Shari'afim lashu et habatzek beharbe meperot. That even if they knead the dough with an excessive amount of juice, meaning it's a lot, it's not just a little bit of juice, it's instead of water. Adayin tzarich sheyeh ta'am hameperot nikar ba'isa. According to Maran, in order for dough to become mezonot, remember there are a few different definitions, 3 definitions of Pata Baba Kisnin. Remember what they were? The first definition of Pata Baba Kisnin? Let's look back. Page 433. If you want to look in, that's a different halakha. That's the bagels. If you look in 433, that's if you want to go to Safaria, 168, halakha 7. Pata Baba Kisnin or Bechisanin. Everyone, there's a different. Yesh mefarshim. Some explain what is Pata Baba. Pata Baba Kisnin is exactly what Uziel Vadia was telling us about. It's a type of dough that technically you only have to say mezonot on, unless you eat more than a certain amount and it turns into your meal. In that case, it becomes hamotzi and berkat hamazon. Not all mizonot things stay mizonot forever. It's a little confusing, but that's a halakha. So what are the definitions of pat haba b'kisnin? There are three different contradictory definitions. Yesh mefarshim pat she'asui kemin kisim. Some say it's dough that is made with pockets. Shememalim otam dvash or sukar ve'egozim ushkedim ve'tavlin. They fill it with honey and nuts and sugar and spices. V'yesh mefarshim, and some say no, that's not pat haba b'kisnin. She'isa shirev badvash or shemen or chalav. That it's dough, that in the dough itself you mix spices or milk or oil or honey or those kind of things. Says Maran, it has to be that you can taste that fruit juice or that milk inside of the dough. If you can't taste it, then it doesn't matter that they put it inside there. Rama, he has a stricter definition. Remember what the Rama says? Some say that even if you could taste the apple juice, I'm going to use apple juice. Even if you could taste the apple juice, it's still considered bread. Unless it has so much honey that it becomes a honey cake, or so much apple that it becomes a cookie or a cake. Meaning, unless it radically transforms it into a dessert, it retains its beracha of hamutzi. So for sure, all of those breads that they serve on the airplanes and they say mizonot, all of them, according to the Rama, are bread. So for Ashkenazim, there's no way in the world they can say mizonot on that. The challah roll they give you is not sweet enough that you would serve it for dessert also. There could be some chalot, I don't know. I've been to some people's houses where their challah, I would really serve it for dessert. But then again, it could be that I'm the type of person who prefers my cake not so sweet either. So I don't know, maybe I'm not a good judge of Edith and Rachel, they make this spelt cake with maple syrup and blueberries, but it's not like the cake you buy at the store, which has more sugar in it than it has flour in it, correct? But I like that cake. For me, that's a good cake. Some people, their challah is 3 times sweeter than that cake, though. You go to their house and they're slicing chalot, and nobody can stop eating that challah because it's like they're handing out honey cake. That's not bread either. Okay, you don't make hamotzi on that. But we're saying Rama is saying that it's not just that you taste the apple juice; it's that you taste that it's sweet. You could do this very easily on the airplane. Take that bread and eat the bread, and say, if it didn't say mizonot on the package, would you ever guess there's apple juice on this bread?
Well, people's taste buds are also different. It's like we bought some challah on the Upper West Side last time we were there, and it was supposedly a motzi. It tasted so sweet. I said, how can this possibly be challah?
Right. Okay.
And this was supposedly a natural food bread.
Well, you should see the unnatural food bread, and this. So at least the matter of tasting. Maran says if you taste it, it's already mizonot. Rama says it has to be so sweet that it becomes a dessert. Harav Peretz leans towards the Rama in this one. Not to contradict Maran, but just because you could taste something in dough doesn't make it now mizonot. It's tasting like the apple juice means it becomes a significant part of the bread. It's what it is. It's apple bread. It's V'yesh mefarshim, and some say shipat ben metubelet ben shena metubelet. Some say it's bread, whether it's seasoned or not seasoned. She'osim ota ka'avim biveshim v'kosesin otam. That they make them into crackers and you crunch them. So it doesn't make a difference if it's seasoned or not seasoned. It could be flour and water that's crunchy. Flour and water that's crunchy is not a hamotzi, it's mizonot. Remember why we spent a whole month on what the bracha of matzah is? The box matzot. Remember, that was the whole reason, because of this halakha.
And also the apple juice.
Very good. Egg matzot, where we did that. The halakha, what's the halakha? Says the Maran, kidivrei kulam. All 3 opinions. Shelachol elu advarim, that all of these things, notanim lehem dinin shamarnu b'pat haba b'kisanin, we include all of them in the halachot of pat haba b'kisanin. What is that halakha? The halakha is, if you're eating just a little bit of it, you say mizonot and al michya. But if you're eating a significant quantity, I think Maran said 4 eggs. I think that was Maran's number. But correct me if I'm wrong, you look it back. So how much is 4 eggs? How big is an egg? Good. Not an ostrich egg, not a dinosaur egg, just a regular egg, the kind you have in your refrigerator.
Not a quail egg.
Not a quail egg. Okay, also that's also very good. An egg is an egg, and all of them.
It's about as big as like a little bigger than your eye.
A little bigger than your eye. Okay, I guess it depends how big your eye is, right?
Your eyes are bigger than
I
your
know.
stomach.
So, fair, thank you, Achanan. So now you're eating that much, and by the way, there are people who in one sitting can definitely eat that much. You've seen them before. It's not even that much, but if you're having, that's your food. So for example, if you're going to eat one of these foods, and you're sitting down, and that's your lunch, so that automatically makes it hamotzi and berkat hamazon. So now back to the laws of pizza. Yes? Even if...
Do you have to wash? Sorry. Do you have to wash if you make it into Birkat Hamazon?
Yeah, yes. Maran has a whole section on it. Look in the halakha. If you have on Sefaria, look at the halakha 6. Look in 6. There are a lot of details there that you want to look at. Really, the answer to that question, is in 158. You look in Orach Chaim 158.3. Let me just find it for you. I think it's in my volume here, and I'll read it to you quickly. 158, because it's relevant now to the pizza discussion we're having. 158, Gimel, where's Gimel? So many pages here. Gimel. No, it's not the right place to look. It's definitely the right area, but not the right place. The answer is you do nitlat yadayim. Yes, that's the answer. So even if pizza was pata b'kisnin, even if it was, right? So even if the dough, you could taste the apple juice in it. But how much pizza do you eat? Let's. I don't have an exact measurement to tell you. Imagine a normal pizza with 8 slices. How many slices would you have to eat for that to be considered 4 eggs?
2 slices.
2 slices? You'd agree that 2 slices? So 2 yeah?
Unless it's Sicilian pizza, which is a thicker.
Okay, unless you're getting the deep dish pizza, great, then that would even be 1 slice. In that case, anyways, you have to wash and say hamotzi and berkat hamazon. This whole mizonot pizza is a fraud. It's really an embarrassing thing. Not only are people saying the wrong baracha, but they're not even... The rabbis are writing on the food mizonot. All because people are too afraid to say berkat hamazon. And all because the people are too afraid to say the original berkat hamazon, which is a short one. And that's how one problem makes many more problems. In my book, Zev, do you see if I have a Hishalom right here in the shelf under the agave syrup? The one shelf down. Is there a copy of my book? Can I have it, please? Thank you. In my book, I wrote a quote from the Shach. The problem is, I don't remember which page of the book. The Shach says, just like it is forbidden to permit that which is prohibited. This is the Shach on Shulchan Aruch. If you want to find it, it's in Yoreh De'ah 242. Just like it is forbidden to permit that which is prohibited, so too it is forbidden to prohibit that which is permitted. The reason for this being that most often there will be a side of leniency, which may only arise after 100 things. Therefore, if one must forbid something due to doubt or due to the fact that the situation is unclear, the posek must say that the prohibition is unclear, yet we still must be stringent. He says something fascinating. People always think stricter is better. Now, we've dispelled that notion many times here. But what we can say is that oftentimes you don't realize the ripple effect of your stringency until it's too late. So what are people being strict about? They're being strict about, we can't say the short berkat hamazon. Why? Because it's the abbreviated version. It's not abbreviated, by the way. It's the original version. There's an expanded version. But they call it short because that's the way that it's called. So the short Birkat Hamazon, you can say it. There's somebody who even made a whole clip about me. All the times I told people to say short Birkat Hamazon. And that's the most evil thing of all the things. Halavai, that should be the most evil thing I've ever said. Say the Rambam's Birkat Hamazon. That's what I'm saying. So what do they? No, you can't do that. It's forbidden to do that. And what happens? It's forbidden to say the short Birkat Hamazon. So now you want everyone to say the long Birkat Hamazon. What happens when people say long Birkat Hamazon? In order to fulfill the mitzvah of Birkat Hamazon, you have to have kavanah. It's a biblical commandment. It's a biblical commandment from the Torah. In order to have kavanah in every single word, or else your Birkat Hamazon doesn't count. So you think you're so great, you're saying the long one, but you have kavanah for every word. I know that I struggle. I have kavanah for my whole Birkat Hamazon. I have kavanah for it. On a deoraita level, on a biblical level. I listen to every word. I know what every word means. Every time I say Shem Hashem, I'm thinking about HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Every one of those things I do, Shalom Yisrael. Who can do a 10-minute Birkat Hamazon and have kavanah for every word? But forget that one. Now what it has become?
Right.
Yes.
So for people that are learning Hebrew, sometimes we buy these sidurs that are they have the transliteration. Is it better to say Birkat Hamazon in the transliteration or in English?
That's a good question. Let me answer that right after this. 1 second. Now what happens? What happens is that the people that are afraid to say the short Birkat Hamazon, so they say the long one. So they say the long one, they don't want to wash their hands for bread. So what do they end up doing? They end up eating pizza without netilat yadayim. They don't want to wash their hands. They end up saying mizonot on something which is hamotzi, and they end up skipping Birkat Hamazon and instead saying ala michya. All of that because then originally someone said, oh, you can't say the short Birkat Hamazon. All of that's what Shach says. 100 steps later, you find the problem. Now, Uziel Vadia asked a good question about berachot in general. Is it better to say things in English, or is it better to say things in transliteration? Uziel Vadia, I'm going to say C. It's better to say it in Hebrew. But what do I mean? Of course, Hebrew, Lashon HaKodesh, HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us that language. That's the best way to pray. Aside from Shema Yisrael, there is no obligation for a person to pray in Hebrew. A person can pray in any language which they understand. That's the key word here. So I cannot take a Russian siddur with English transliteration and pray in Russian. I don't speak Russian. But someone who doesn't speak Hebrew can take a Hebrew siddur and pray in a Hebrew siddur. Hebrew works even if you don't understand everything. But no other language works like that. And because of that, there is value even to a person saying tefillah in Hebrew, like in a transliteration, over English. But there's another value, which is understanding what you're saying. And there's a way to do both. Even if a person doesn't speak Hebrew, if you study the siddur and you study the words well enough, and you write, there's a beautiful siddurim today where the translation is right under the Hebrew word. And you can pray that way, looking at the English words while you're praying, and therefore you tick 2 boxes. You also pray in Hebrew, and you pray with knowing what the words mean. It's obvious to me that a person should try the best they can to be reading in Hebrew, and I believe that transliteration serves that purpose. Transliteration helps people who are not yet reading Hebrew be able to say things in Hebrew and read things in Hebrew and pray things in Hebrew. Imagine learning your whole, blessed art thou, God, Lord, King of the universe, and then one day now you know how to read Hebrew, and then you have to switch over. Baruch atah. Imagine the first time around, they just taught you in English letters, Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, and then in the bottom they wrote English translation, and then you wouldn't have to relearn everything twice. There's value to that. I was once in somebody's house in Israel, a rabbi, Talmid Chacham, spoke another language. Let's say it was Russian. I'm just going to say. I don't want to. I was at his house. He married an Israeli woman. He speaks Hebrew. But still, his Russian is better than his Hebrew. And he was doing Kiddush on Friday night, Shabbat morning. He was doing Kiddush, and he was using his Hebrew-Russian siddur. And his wife slammed the siddur closed and said, "Get that off my table. Go get yourself a real siddur." And he was a little bit in shock. I was definitely in shock. She says, "I don't want my kids to see that you can't read Hebrew properly or can't understand something. I don't want the kids to see." So what are the kids seeing? The kids are seeing you disrespecting your husband, slamming a siddur, throwing a holy book off the table, getting a different book. All of that they're seeing. They're okay with all of that? What's the problem? Even if he wanted to say Kiddush in Russian, he could say Kiddush in Russian. If you wanted to say Kiddush in English, you could say Kiddush in English. I once saw a minyan of Russian Jews saying Kaddish in Russian. And everyone answering Amen. And Chazarat HaShatz, repetition of the Amidah in Russian. What happened? Nothing happened. That person has to pray to HaKadosh Baruch Hu at the end of the day. But I don't get involved in when husbands and wives fight. Just like I don't want anyone to get involved between me and my wife, I don't get involved between anybody else and their wife. And I always learn that in many times in life, when couples come to you for advice, when things are not going well, the only person who loses out is you. Because after a while, they make peace, and then all they do is they hate you for getting involved. Umikol makom, nonetheless, kedei latzet yidei safek, in order to remove yourself from doubt, ra'ui v'nachon nehachmir, it's best to be stringent. V'le'echol hapizza be'emtza seuda, and to eat the pizza in the middle of the meal, a meal that you already ate bread on. This is like my chocolate-covered raisin. So you should only eat pizza when you go to a pizza store and you eat bread and regular bread, an olive's amount of regular bread, and then you should eat the pizza. Or you should eat at least 3 eggs. That was the 3 eggs. So you should either have pizza in the middle of a meal. That way you don't upset those people who say mizonot on pizza, because you are now eating in the middle of a bread meal. So anyways, you want to say a bracha. Or you could eat the size of 3 eggs. Or you could eat enough pizza that you're completely satisfied from it. The reason I'm skipping the notes on the bottom is that there's a lengthy conversation here about whether there's a difference between dough that is stuffed, like a calzone, or dough that has cheese on top of it, like pizza. Is there any difference between a cheese-stuffed dough or a cheese-topped dough in halakha? Nobody says yes, except for one chacham. And that chacham really makes an issue regarding pizza, that by the pizza you can see the cheese. By the calzone you can't. So one should be mezonot and one should be hamotzi, even though they're identical in terms of their ingredients and their makeup and their baking and all of that. It's a difficult thing to do, but I don't really care to split those hairs, because I'm going to tell you again.
Is that the same as, like, sometimes you can get a dish like, you hollow out a loaf of bread and stuff it like with zucchini.
Right.
And then they close it up again. But it's nearly 80-90% zucchini with, it's really like a vegetable.
The bread, the crust. Oh, that's a great question. Though that question is different because they're not cooking the zucchini in there.
They are.
They are?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. It's interesting halakha. Do you remember we touched on it lightly, that if you're at a wedding and they hand out some kind of bread that is holding a salty fish on it, you just say shakol on the fish and not hamotzi on the bread, because the bread is only there to hold the fish. And to
it almost like a prop for the
right.
fish, rather than it's cooked together as it was like a closed-faced fish sandwich.
It's a great question. I don't actually. There's a few different ways you can go with this. Zev, the answer: eat it in the middle of a hamotzi meal that you have bread on, and don't eat any chocolate-covered raisins after that. Now the truth is that I brought 2 teshuvot that I really want to study with you. I'm just looking at the clock, and I see that I won't sufficiently get through either one of those teshuvot. So here's what I'm going to propose. There's something I want to share with you before I read those teshuvot, but I want to share it with you off camera. So the people who are watching on YouTube or listening to a podcast, they're going to lose out on this part. And those who want to stay, I want to tell you something that I can't read to you recorded. And that will be an introduction to those 2 teshuvot that we're going to do on Monday. So we'll do Rabbi Bar Yosef and Rabbi Ben Zion Abba Shaul, the teshuvot regarding pizza. We'll do that on Monday, B'ezrat Hashem. For right now, I'm going to turn off the camera, and I'm going to read to you. We're still continuing class. Class is not over. I'm just not going to record this part of the shiur. So Yitzhak, I'm going to cut the...